Time travel has been a fascinating concept that has captured our imagination for centuries. From H.G. Wells' The Time Machine to modern interpretations like Dark and Interstellar, the idea of moving through time has been explored in countless ways. But what if time travel wasn't about moving yourself through time, but rather time moving around you? This is the premise of our story today, about a young woman named Leah who finds herself trapped in a bizarre temporal anomaly where each day brings a new century, a new reality, while she remains the only constant, the only one who remembers. Imagine waking up one morning to find that the entire world has shifted beneath you. The familiar hum of your refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the notification pings from your phone, all gone, replaced by an eerie silence that feels almost tangible. This is exactly what happened to Leah on what should have been just another Tuesday morning in May 2025. When she opened her eyes, something felt immediately wrong. The quality of light streaming through her curtains was different, softer somehow, lacking the harsh glare of streetlights that usually lingered even after dawn. As Leah sat up slowly in her bed, the wrongness solidified around her. Her room looked the same furniture, same posters on the wall, same clothes thrown over her chair from the night before, but something was undeniably off. The air felt different, cleaner, but somehow earthier. And the silence, that was the most unsettling part. No electronic hums, no distant car engines, no notifications chiming from her phone. Just stillness, broken only by the sound of her own breathing and, distantly, what sounded like hooves. Pushing aside her covers, Leah moved cautiously to her window, pulling back the curtains to reveal a scene that made her heart stutter in her chest. The suburban street she had lived on her entire life was gone. In its place was a dirt road lined with buildings she didn't recognize, wooden structures with pitched roofs, some with signs swinging in the gentle morning breeze. People walked along the unpaved street wearing clothing that belonged in a period drama. Women in long dresses with high collars and bonnets, men in waistcoats and top hats. A horse-drawn wagon clattered past her house, the driver tipping his hat to a passerby. Leah's mind raced. Was this a dream? Some elaborate prank? Had she somehow wandered onto a movie set in her sleep? But the consistency of it all, the smell of wood smoke in the air, the natural way people moved about their business, this wasn't staged. This felt real, too real. Turning from the window, Leah noticed that while her room remained mostly unchanged, subtle differences had appeared overnight. Her digital alarm clock was gone, replaced by a mechanical one. Her laptop was nowhere to be seen. The electrical outlets in her wall had vanished as if they'd never existed. With growing panic, she grabbed her door handle, at least that was still familiar, and rushed downstairs, calling for her parents. What she found in the kitchen nearly stopped her heart. Her mother stood at an old cast-iron stove, wearing a floor-length dress with her hair pinned up in a style Leah had only seen in history books. Her father sat at the table reading what appeared to be a newspaper by oil lamp, despite the morning light streaming through the windows. He wore suspenders over a collarless shirt and a pocket watch chain draped across his vest. "Good morning, dear," her mother said pleasantly, as if nothing was amiss. "You've slept late. Breakfast is nearly ready." Leah stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what she was seeing. Her parents looked like themselves but different, as if they'd always belonged in this time period. When she finally found her voice, it came out as a croak. What year is it?" Her father lowered his newspaper, looking at her with mild concern. "Are you feeling well, Leah? It's 1873, same as yesterday." He chuckled, returning to his paper. "Unless you slept for a year." 1873. The number echoed in Leah's mind like a death knell. Somehow, overnight, she had traveled more than 150 years into the past. Or rather, the past had come to her, reshaping the world while leaving her memories intact. But why? How was this possible? And why was she the only one who seemed to notice that anything had changed? Throughout that first day, Leah tried desperately to make sense of her new reality. Her house, while structurally the same, had been transformed into an 1870s home, complete with oil lamps and a kitchen pump for water. Her parents moved through this world with practiced ease, completely unaware that just yesterday they had been using smartphones and complaining about Wi-Fi speeds. When Leah mentioned things like cars or computers, they looked at her with genuine confusion and concern, suggesting perhaps she was coming down with something. By nightfall, Leah had given up trying to convince them that the world had changed. Instead, she retreated to her room with a journal she'd found on her desk. Apparently, the 1873 version of herself kept a diary. She began to document everything, hoping that writing it down might help her make sense of it, or at the very least, preserve her sanity. She wrote until her candle burned low, finally falling into an exhausted sleep with one desperate hope, that she would wake up back in 2025, and this would all have been just a bizarre dream. But when Leah opened her eyes the next morning, she knew immediately that things had changed again. The silence of 1873 was gone, replaced by a cacophony of sounds unlike anything she'd ever heard. A high-pitched hum filled the air, and through her window she could see not dirt roads or even the paved streets of her own time, but something far more fantastical. Gleaming chrome towers stretched impossibly high into the clouds, connected by transparent tubes through which what looked like vehicles zipped along at incredible speeds. The sky was crisscrossed with flying cars, actual flying cars, that moved in orderly patterns like schools of fish. Looking down at herself, Leah saw that her cotton nightgown had been replaced by a sleek, silvery material that seemed to regulate her body temperature perfectly. Her room had transformed again. Now it was all smooth surfaces and embedded technology. A holographic display hovered over what appeared to be her desk, showing information in a script she could somehow read despite never having seen it before. With trembling legs, she made her way downstairs, knowing what she would find, but still unprepared for the sight of her parents in futuristic clothing, her father gesturing at invisible screens in the air, while her mother prepared breakfast using appliances that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. "What year is it?" Leah asked, her voice stronger this time, prepared for the answer. 30, dear, her mother replied without looking up from the hovering cookware that seemed to need no heat source. "Are you running a diagnostic this morning, Leah? Your neural implant should be displaying the date." Neural implant. The word sent a shiver down Leah's spine. She raised her hand to the back of her neck, feeling a small, smooth bump that hadn't been there before. Somehow, overnight, she had jumped from the distant past to the far future, more than 1,000 years beyond her own time. And so the pattern began. Each night, Leah would go to sleep not knowing what era she would wake up in. One morning, it would be the Renaissance, with her family living in a modified version of their house that suited the 16th century. The next day, she might find herself in the 1950s, with her mother in a polka dot dress preparing breakfast on a chrome-trimmed stove while rock and roll played on a radio. Another day, it would be some post-apocalyptic version of the 2200s, where her family lived in a fortified version of their home, venturing out in protective gear to tend to hydroponic gardens. The only constant was Leah's awareness. While everyone else, not just her parents, but neighbors, teachers, friends, seemed to think they had always lived in whatever time period it was that day, Leah maintained her memories. She alone remembered all the different versions of reality, all the different centuries she had experienced. And she alone seemed to notice the inconsistencies, the things that remained the same despite the changing eras. The most obvious was a massive oak tree that stood in the town square. Regardless of the time period, that tree was always there, sometimes young, sometimes ancient, but always in the same spot. The town's clock tower was another constant, though its materials and technology changed with the eras. And then there was the symbol. A circular design with intricate patterns inside it, resembling a Celtic knot but with elements Leah couldn't identify. In each time period, this symbol appeared somewhere prominent, carved into the stone base of the clock tower in medieval times, worked into the ironwork in the Victorian era, embedded in digital displays in futuristic periods. Most importantly, Leah discovered that her journal remained with her, changing its physical form to match the era, but always containing her previous entries. In the 1800s, it was a leather-bound book with yellowing pages. In the 3000s, it was a neural interface that transcribed her thoughts. In a prehistoric period, it manifested as markings on carefully prepared animal hide, but the content, her desperate attempts to make sense of what was happening, remained intact across the temporal shifts. After weeks of this bizarre existence, Leah began to notice something even more unsettling. Words were appearing in her journal that she hadn't written, the same message, repeating with increasing frequency across the pages. "You are the anchor." The first time she saw these words, Leah assumed she must have